Hollywood, to the mayor's office, and now behind the mic at KXEX. This is the Alan Autry Show. No retreat.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody grabbing out there. Nobody.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So, 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Free at last! Free at last! Thanks Almighty! We are free at
In town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now. 559-899-1550.
And welcome to Alan Autry No Retreat. I'm Alan Autry, and honored and humbled to have y'all with us today, whether by radio or on social media. Not only here in my beloved San Joaquin Valley, but around the country and around the world, thanks to this modern technology. Thanks for being with us today for this hour. I enjoy being with you. And, unfortunately, tragically, we have a subject that pretty much is dominating the talk, not only in talk radio, on TV, everywhere you go. Gyms, grocery stores, families are talking about the situation in Ukraine. Sometimes issues are so important, so massive, the consequences so great that it's tough to not talk about it. It would be conspicuous not to talk about it. And this is one of those subjects that it's probably never been in my lifetime a more important subject that is so consequential than this Ukraine-Russia situation, this war that is clearly not confined in the ramifications of, are not confined to just Ukraine and Russia. It has consequences for the entire world. Some of those possible consequences may take decades, if not longer, to remedy if the situation isn't handled properly and the proper conclusion to this war is not achieved. I've said before, I know I come from a movie background, but I'm not being overly dramatic, overacting, if you will, when I say that. When you have a situation where one wrong move could end up with, at the very least, a tactical use of a battlefield nuke, a mini nuke, if you will, which is enough to destroy, a huge city, cause enormous, horrific devastation, but could end up with the launching of the big stuff, of which would, if not end mankind as we know it, so drastically alter it that it would take hundreds and hundreds of years, if ever, to get back to where we are today. So I think the importance attached to this is it's just extremely important. And I saw a quote from Plato, and let me see, not Play-Doh, the philosopher Plato. Because people say, I don't want to get involved in politics. Politics, that's for somebody else. I don't bother myself with politics. You guys that are so involved in that, Autry, you got your show, you've always been involved in politics, and, I just don't get it. It's not for me. Well, Plato had an interesting take on this. Pretty smart guy, Plato, by all accounts, and history has proven him to be probably one of the most prescient, smartest individuals, wisest individuals to ever walk the planet. But he said something very interesting about politics. He says, one of the penalties of refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. I'm going to quote him one more time. Boy, is it true. One of the penalties of refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. I'll let you chew on that. Let your mind go where it goes on that. I know where mine does, and it's how our government is responding to this situation right now. And again, I know some folks who listen to this show or hear of a quote from this show. We're all susceptible to believing what we want to believe. We have a certain set of ideas and principles that guide our life, our worldview, if you will, of things. So we tend to drift to these positions and ideas and conclusions that kind of line up with that worldview. And some of you have made a decision, people I know in life, some of my friends made a decision. I'm just, this all-right conservative guy that, it's about your political party that you're affiliated with before whether I agree with you or not. And I've never been like that. I've never joined a fraternity in college. This whole fraternal thing that you back up your frat brother, even if your frat brother is a knucklehead and goes out and starts a fight for no reason. There's a story about that from my college days that involves Pete Carroll, the coach of the Seattle Seahawks, that I will tell in relation to this. Not him, he's a great guy. But it's how this mass fraternal tribal attitude can make people do, otherwise clear-thinking people do some really, really crazy things. But it's just simply not true. I try on this show my whole life. I've been one to have to tell friends I love very dearly that, what you're doing is wrong. It's going to wind up not only hurting you, buddy, you're going to hurt your family, you're going to hurt your friends, and your behavior is such that you may never come back from that. And I know the power in that because I had a friend have to tell me that. And at the time, I didn't like it. Everything was going through my head like, oh, you're holier than thou. Oh, you think your life's so much better than mine. Oh, you're so far superior, as I'm listening to it. I didn't say that to him, but that's what I was thinking. And I had these other so-called friends that were out there engaging in that same behavior with me and saying, man, I have your back. Boy, if anything ever happened, I have your back. And you get along in life and that's not true because you have to define what is having your back. Is having your back telling you what you want to hear, even if what you want to hear is self-destructive and destructive to those around you? Or is having your back being strong enough of a friend, a committed friend enough, a true friend enough to be able to tell you when you are going off the track? And I thank goodness for that individual because those words stuck in my heart. And when I finally was able, with the help of God and a friend like him, I was able to make those changes. And I thank him every day for being that type of friend. So I'm like that when I had to get on, our Mayor Jerry Dyer on the crime situation, our police chief. I don't just cavalierly go out and criticize people. That's just not my style. There's certain things when you get into leadership position, when your decisions are affecting not just you, but the welfare of, in some cases, millions of people, and in some cases, the future of the entire human species, I have to look at the behavior. We all, as Plato says, have to be involved in politics because you may not only be left with being governed by your inferiors, you may be left with a totally destroyed way of life and a destroyed planet in this case. Which brings me, after that long-winded explanation, to my criticism of this administration in this moment of history. This, the word out there, the buzzword now is consequential. And Thomas Sowell used that word a lot. Consequential actions, consequential behavior. And that means exactly like the word implies, the consequences. Some actions are not consequential, really. Whether, I get a job and I audition from it, I don't get it. That may be disappointing to my family and me at the time, but it's not consequential. It doesn't have a big, huge impact on me or people around me. But certain things are consequential, and certainly what's going on over in the Ukraine right now, the decisions that are being made are extremely consequential. And my fear, I'll say, I'm fearful, because I do not believe we have the team that has the skill set, starting with President Biden, then to Kamala Harris. Then you have his chief of staff, Klain, who's running and hiding. He's so scared you never hear from him at all. Compare that to the Reagan days. Compare that even to the Clinton days. Compare it to the Bush days, when the cabinet was out there during times of crisis and ready to take whatever heat was necessary. You have, as Larry said the other day, you don't have leaders, you have politicians. And when you have politicians leading the way, every decision they make is going to be filtered through the prism of how this helps me or hurts me to stay in office, and also how it's going to affect my ability to cash in with millions when I leave office by writing a book. Trust me, Kamala Harris has the first 3 chapters of her book written, and most vice presidents and presidents do. And I'm not picking, as I said, it starts at the top. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, totally ill-equipped for this. And each day that goes by, you see this in terms of the decisions that only hurt the American people, does nothing to deter Putin. They do nothing to de-escalate the situation, and everything to escalate it. And I'm reminded of, there's been a lot of vice presidents and presidents that were ineffective. And I tell you, I never go after Republicans. Let me tell you, when George H. Bush was in office, I was kind of worried if something happened to him and you had Dan Quayle in there. A lot of you folks don't remember Dan Quayle, those old enough to do. Nothing against Dan Quayle. By every measure, he seemed to be a nice guy. Kamala Harris, by every estimation, seems to be a nice lady. Somebody you might want to go, have dinner at the Olive Garden with her and her husband and be able to talk about, stuff. She was very interested in the arts and movies, dated Montel Williams at one time, and I don't say that to put her down. She dated whoever she wanted to back in the day. But clearly interested in the arts and dancing and this sort of thing, and became a DA, and then flipped and decided, I'm not going to have that DA attitude anymore of putting bad people in jail. I'm going to do everything I can to keep bad people out on the streets. Kind of an inexplicable transition unless you understand the politics of the time. With her, Dan Quayle, we're not ready for prime time. And when I see yesterday that Joe Biden has sent Kamala Harris right into the thick of this crisis, that did not send a good message to the American people, even the Democrats, and I'll go as far as to say even many in the woke far left. It certainly didn't send a good message to the European allies that you send her, the same one who Biden sent to the border to go fix our border situation, and she basically gave him the one-finger salute. Said, I'm not going there. Went to Guatemala to find out the root causes of immigration. We're still waiting for that report. Should absolutely change the landscape of immigration, solve all the problems. Yeah, I'm being very facetious. But, I'm left with going, okay, she's the vice president. She was elected. There's been a lot of incompetent vice presidents. I talked about Dan Quayle. Here's the difference. George H. Bush was able to put a great team around Dan Quayle. People that had taken a step down from their jobs. People with stellar resumes as problem solvers, not checking the box of political correctness. They didn't go and see, let me appoint as Secretary of State the first Republican who owned a poodle and who did not belong to a country club, and all that to change the perception of the Republic. That wasn't done. It was who could do the best job. Reagan brought in Henry Kissinger, renowned all over the world, Secretary of State, with his ability to de-escalate, defuse tensions around the world. And he did a dang good job of it because that was his wheelhouse. He had an experience behind it. Where is Kamala Harris's any life experience on de-escalating anything? When the riots were going on, 2020, when the streets, over 400 riots, buildings were being burned down, police were being assaulted with frozen water bottles and baseball bats and Molotov cocktails. Did you see her out there trying to de-escalate that? No, basically she says, I'm going to support a fund to bail out these people that are perpetrating that violence. When they go to jail, I'm going to bail them out so they can continue to commit more violence. She's proven that she has no interest in de-escalating a tense situation. We've seen her in action. And this is not some ad hominem attack on Black Lives Matter or any of that. It's a very complex issue. I get it. But she was given an opportunity on a grand stage to be a diplomat, to show leadership and say, okay, everybody has, the grievances are here, but we have to de-escalate this violence. People are dying. Over 400 police officers assaulted. David Dorn shot dead, former police officer. And the best she could do was actually urge and encourage more of the violence. And I asked this question. It may rub some people wrong. In the tactics, and Joe Biden was right along with it, isn't the same thing happening in the Ukraine right now? Think about it. This administration is doing everything it can to encourage Zelensky to keep fighting, keep up the ante, double down, shoot more, kill more, in a war that many, many believe is unwinnable on the battlefield for the Ukrainians. Yet, we see the peace talks today broke down again between Russia and Ukraine. One encouraging sign is the Russians sent their A-team there. And Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, prior to this, that was low-level people meeting on both sides, actually, Ukraine and Russia. But this had a high-level dude there, Lavrov. Ukraine sent their foreign minister, high-level dude. But it broke off. The peace talks broke off. And I look up at the monitor here, just as the latest reports has the Russian army closing in now on Kiev. And all of this, you want to have optimism in any endeavor if it's a righteous endeavor. But you also have to be realistic, because unfounded optimism that's not rooted in reality, that really has only one outcome. And that outcome is deadly. It can only hurt people. It doesn't help the situation at all. They have, Kamala Harris should have insisted to the Ukrainian government that she or somebody be at those peace talks. Joe Biden should be at those peace talks right now. Why isn't he? That begs a big question. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about it, because I've said on this show, it saddens my heart to say it. I've said it so many times that doesn't make it less true. When you see something that doesn't make sense, see something that's brutal, you see something and you say to yourself, how could people do that? Usually, almost 99.9% of the time, you just follow the money. You follow the money, and then what you're seeing makes a whole lot more sense. This is Alan Autry, No Retreat. We will be right back.
Looks something like a turnip green.
Jose, we'll do that Blinken deal here about a minute into when we come back. Yeah, folks, just I hate, it seems like every show that criticizing this administration, but I've been on the planet a while. Not as long as Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck's older than me, by the way. I think he's like 75, 77. He looks 10 years younger than me, but he wasn't mayor for 8 years. Mayors are dog years. I got a good reason for looking like this. But it's these midterms are really, really important. And I'm some of you know this. I'm a registered independent. I was a Republican for a lot of years, and I just got tired of all of this lockstep stuff. That just like the Democrats, they expected every Republican, they meaning the Republican National Committees, Democratic National Committees, they just said, listen, you don't ask questions, just line up, on this particular position, and here's our candidate, and you got to support him, or you're a bad Republican, or you're a bad Democrat. You don't support this candidate. And I think I'm a lot like you all out there. I think that's what Autry's army's about. It's like, hold on now, hold on. Just because it might be a Republican or Democrat, don't march somebody out there that I do not know might be the biggest doofus in the world, and just because they got an R by their name, if I don't vote for them, I'm a bad Republican. Same thing on the Democratic side. I think, and I just really got tired of that because there was this litmus test. And if you didn't check all the boxes as a Republican, you were a bad Republican. First of all, I asked the higher ups there, who put this together? What kind of feedback did you get? Did you say, I never got a mailer saying what should the platform be? I don't think the Democrats' leadership sent anything out, in mass scale. Hey, let's really hear from the people what they really want. It was a group of elites in both parties that, as Thomas Sowell calls them, the vision of the anointed ones. They think they're so much smarter than us, Autry's army, that someday we'll be enlightened enough like them. But right now, we're just kind of not there on their level to make the decisions for ourselves. So they're left with having the task of thinking for us, making every decision for us. And by the way, you don't need to question this right now because we're too busy taking care of you, making sure all your needs are met. And I tell you, folks, you think I'm just being facetious and go, that is the attitude on both parties. It is. That's why, and don't get carried away with, and I wish the radio folks could do this. Turn it up.
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now. 559-899-1550.
Hey, welcome back to Alan Autry. No Retreat. Oh, Sweet Home, Alabama. I tell you, it reminds me of Bryce Mitchell, Sweet Home, Arkansas. Boy, he has a take on this war that's going viral, UFC fighter Bryce Mitchell. And if we get time, we may play it again because I think it expresses how a lot of us feel of what's going on. We don't know on either side. We got to just be, and that's why I'm going to get back to this team that we have, Biden and Harris, who basically, and I'm going to tell you, I've never heard of a situation where heads of state, China, and Russia would not take the call of the President of the United States. And that happened. He wanted to talk to him. They just, no, thank you. Hey, Xi Jinping, it's President Biden on the line. Now, tell him I'm out making sneakers. I've never heard of such a thing. How insulting. But that's how little they think of the America's voice and America's leadership in the world right now. And the truth will set you free, but first it'll make you miserable. And the only way through this, for this conflict, is for to have a conclusion that can avoid a disaster. We already have a horrific undertaking there. There's no doubt about that. A destructive occurrence has happened. We just got to keep it from being a total, complete 100% disaster, economically, militarily, any way you look at it. The truth on the table is, President Joe Biden knows this as well. every time you see him on TV, he's constantly having to say this. And that statement being that we are united, that our allies in the United States are united 100%, rock solid, baby. Can't come between them. You mess with them, you mess with them, you mess with us. All together to the wall, we're going to go with this thing. Staying together. That is just simply not true. NATO is not together on these sanctions. They're not together, totally together on 100% support on the Ukraine. It's just not true. You heard just the other day that France said we're not going to go along with these sanctions on the oil. We're going to take the oil. Germany said, after initially saying, okay, we're in, well, they see now that they don't have, the nuclear facility shut them down, the coal plants shut it down, went all in this Green Deal, but it was too dang early. Anybody with sense God gave a mule would know that. They weren't ready. They didn't have enough electric cars. They didn't have enough solar. They just wasn't ready for this transition. So they're running back trying to get their economy going, and they need the Russian oil. The UK, very lukewarm on how far they're going to go. And then it comes to Poland. And Poland came out of the chute appearing to be the best ally and best friend that Ukrainians could have. That's starting to fall apart in terms of the jets that were supposedly on their way to Zelensky. So this whole rock solid NATO alliance is just not reality. It's a lie. And Putin knew that. The big winner of all this is China. They're sitting back in the catbird seat, and they're stronger now than they ever did. The hit on their GDP with this whole war, I think it's less than 0.1%, where around the world it's like quadruple that economies are being hit already because of this war. And it seems like, again, I'm going to take the seams out. I'm going to say it clearly. It's clear where our administration's position is on this. Escalate, 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 till you have you can't escalate anymore, and then I don't know what you do. Historically, the United States has been the one to broker peace. Jimmy Carter, you can say what you want about him, 4 years, inflation. Yeah, I lived through that. It was mad. But what he did was something very historic. He brokered a peace between Israel and Egypt. It cost Anwar Sadat. It cost Anwar Sadat his life. He knew he was a dead man when he did it. But what a debt of gratitude for that single act that Jimmy Carter is owed. It's about peace. Henry Kissinger, peace. Reagan with Gorbachev as they worked through this Cold War. They talked face to face how they could have a peaceful solution to the Cold War and the arms race. And this administration has seemed to have gotten drunk with power, with this fantasy that war is somehow romantic. Yeah, go give them hell, Ukraine. Here, take this. Keep fighting them. Keep fighting them. Here's this now. Here's this plane. Here's this equipment. Instead of saying, have you done everything you can to find a peaceful solution? Because you're not going to have a situation where Putin comes out with nothing for this. You're just not going. Zelensky knows this. And if the United States would step up and understand that Crimea is never going back to the Ukraine. The Donbass region now that declared independence is never going back to the Ukraine. And the Russians just came out with something the other day, and here I go again. Just by saying they've done something that's positive, I'm somehow a Putin apologist. I'm on Putin's team. Again, I'll say it again, we have to grow up. These are kind of things that happen behind the scenes in the history. People, free democracies had to work with tyranny and dictatorships for the sake of the world. That's just the world we live in. Okay? But this situation is playing out. Social media, reporters, everybody's got their phone. Every bomb that explodes is getting reported. It's a real tough, different atmosphere for reality to have its way and common sense have its way. But the Russians came out yesterday, and they have this 4 points. I'll try to remember all four, but I probably won't. But they're 4 points that at least the Russians say, and I know you can't take that word to the bank, but it's on the table for an official release by the news agencies. Sergei Lavrov has said this is Putin's conditions. We'll take this. Number one, that Zelensky can keep the country, stay the Ukraine, but you got to put it in your constitution that you'll never join a bloc, the NATO bloc or the European Union. Right now, a lot of people didn't know that that's in the Ukrainian constitution, the yearning to be into NATO. So he wants it out of the constitution. Okay. Then that the land, Crimea, will be a part of Russia or its independent state, that will never go back to Ukraine. The other is the Donbass region up there, which I think they have a region called Donetsk and Luhansk or something of that nature. But anyway, the Donbass region, pretty good chunk of size of land. But once you give the Russians, they said they've declared independence there. And in that Donbass region is where the 36,000, what they call separatists, they're Russian-backed separatists from Ukraine that have been fighting the Ukrainian government for years now. They're in that Donbass region. So they've declared their independence, and Putin says, I'm just recognizing their independence, basically a Soviet puppet region. But they said if we come, there's one other, but those are the three major points that if Zelensky and the Ukrainian government agree to those, he'll stop. He'll stop bombing. I think it's something you got to call him out. Let him prove himself to be a liar again. But those are three things you're probably going to have to end up giving up, if not the entire country, if you don't play your cards right now. And when you have, I feel from my heart, this is my take, with the Russians surrounding Kiev, and I don't buy for a second that Russian army's in all this disarray. I believe the plan is working out just like they thought it would. They knew they were going to take it in 2-3 days. That convoy that stopped there, that's a supply chain. That stopped on purpose there. There's going to be supplying food, ammo, fuel, as that army surrounds Kiev, and it's like a boa constrictor when they start moving, like they already have, to move in closer and closer to the capital. When they get there, I don't know if that deal will be on the table. They may be, feel it now. We have been forced into it. This is just their thinking, I believe. We're saying, we gave them a chance. Now we're going to remove the government, install another government. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think the better option is to sit down now, have Joe Biden, Kamala Harris intercede in a big way to say we are going to be the brokers of peace, not the cheerleader of war. Because that's exactly what they are right now. They're cheerleading war. And I think the European Union has kind of come to their senses going, this is causing a lot of death. You said, it's Putin killing me. Yeah, I agree with you. But there's such a thing called exacerbation. You can exacerbate the problem and make it worse. And I think that's exactly what's happened here. We have to come to reality. We have to realize that the best option is the brokered peace option to de-escalate. And I just pray every night that gets through the heads of our leaders. And the sooner you get to that table with real negotiations, the sooner that we can all have a sigh of relief, and the people of Ukraine can stop fearing every day whether they or the children are going to have a future. This is Alan Autry, No Retreat. When we come back, I'm going to play this couple of sound bites, kind of further illustrate why there needs to be a change of direction in the government of this country. Either they have to change it, Harris, Biden, or the people are going to have to change it in the midterms. Either way you look at it, change must happen. This is Alan Autry, No Retreat. Be right back. by a publication as one of the top 10 places to go during the winter. Yeah. And so we have this Japanese gardens here, a lot of places, Yosemite and lakes and all that stuff. And that was kind of neat to see Fresno. We don't always make the top good lists, Fresno. As mayor of Fresno, I kind of, still get a little thrill when I see something good like that, happen to Fresno. But there's also truth on the table. I got to tell you, you don't want to be here in Fresno.
On the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now. 559-899-1550.
And welcome back to Alan Autry, No Retreat. You hear this phrase a lot. Well, it's not as bad as it seems. Or let's give them a little chance to work things out. Or it's, they're just new at this. Give them a chance to fix things. And we've said that all about the Biden-Harris administration. I've said, hey, give them some time. Early on, I said, look, he's our president. She's our vice president. Let's support him. But enough time's gone by. And my goodness, not only have we not seen improvement on just the execution of common sense, even the presence of common sense is just totally missing from this administration. This adherence to this woke far left ideology, whether it mean open borders, just jump into any war, teaching our kids to be racist in kindergarten, you could go on and on, that science is racist, and just all of this stuff. You wait for them to show a little wisdom and change a little bit. But it never comes. It took Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, two senators and Democratic senators, to come in and display what Harris and Biden should have displayed. And one of the things that is telling about administration is you expect a certain amount of, if not disorganization, at least some working things falling in place, taking a little time for the right hand to know what the left hand is doing, for teammates to start figuring out how the other teammate works. There's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be some things go wrong, but you see over the course of time, regardless of the ideology of the administration, you see them kind of coalescing and coming together and working together and becoming a more cohesive unit. That's what you normally see. This administration is the most disorganized I have ever seen in my lifetime. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. I don't think the forefinger on the right hand knows what the middle finger is doing on the right hand. It is insane how every department is playing their own game. You're supposed to have briefings. I guess this is why when you don't have briefings, because when you have a president of that age who can only go so far, and you don't have a competent chief of staff to pick up the slack, you don't have a James Baker to pick up the slack for Reagan when he was up there in years, and be able to get everybody on the same page. You get what we've gotten here. Jen Psaki making a statement that totally contradicts what the president said that day, having to come out and say, well, no, that's not what he meant. How many times have we heard that? Well, let me tell you what the president really meant. Well, you say that too many times, and you start to worry. No, you may get away with that once or twice, but if you're constantly saying, this is what the president meant, you have a real communication problem at the top of the food chain with Joe Biden. And you can see department heads starting to be frustrated with this. And it's very, very dangerous. Before we had a situation like we have in Ukraine, which is just a tinderbox that could blow at any second, I guess you could absorb some of that incompetence, that lack of communication. But here's an example. Let me just show you what I mean. Excuse me. With that, we have the one sound bite. I'll look for the other one with John Kirby, but it's Anthony Blinken, our Secretary of State, high-ranking official, pretty much the boss of everything that's going on now, and John Kirby, the spokesperson for the Pentagon. And you see that the Pentagon is starting to really have concerns and starting to see their patience wearing thin on these statements coming from the Secretary of State, Harris and Biden. So he was, Blinken was on, I believe it was CBS, did an interview on this proposal of Poland sending some MiG jets to the Ukraine. And it's important that you know that they're MiG jets because the Ukrainian pilots purportedly know how to fly the MiG jets, don't know how to fly an F-16, an American plane. So the deal would be Poland would send them the MiG jets that the Ukrainian pilots know how to fly. And then America would backfill those planes with some F-16s and show the pilots in Poland how to fly the F-16s. That was the plan. But let's play that sound clip, Jose, of Blinken.
But what more can the United States do here? If, for instance, the Polish government, a NATO member, wants to send fighter jets, does that get a green light from the U.S., or are you afraid that that will escalate tension?
No, that gets a green light. In fact, we're talking with our Polish friends right now about what we might be able to do to backfill their needs if, in fact, they choose to provide these fighter jets to the Ukrainians. What could we do? How can we help to make sure that they get something to backfill the planes that they're handing over to the Ukrainians? We're in very active discussions with them about that. Look, I've been in Europe for the last couple of days working closely, as always, with our allies and partners at NATO.
Okay, you heard that. He jumped all over that like a starving dog going to beat us. So we greenlight that. Absolutely. We are in consultation with our friends, Polish friends. First of all, who's we? You know, who does he have in there talking these very, very sensitive subjects? The ramifications of this kind of act could be seen by Putin very clearly. And I tell you, if the shoe was on the other foot, we would look at it as an act of war. This is a NATO country sending direct aid right across the border in the form of fighter jets to kill Russian troops. But say, no, it's not us. We're not engaged. That's a hard one to swallow. Again, shoe on the other foot, I think we would have a lot of problems with that. But here's the deal. In terms of the disorganization, if that was the well thought out policy, the Biden-Harris administration, with all the powers that be in the military, you'd say, okay, I disagree with it, but I know they got together and thought this thing out. But no, the very next day, John Kirby, the spokesman for the Pentagon, and I started out not particularly caring for this man's skill set. I'm starting to believe he's probably the one, or the Pentagon itself. They're the ones that feed him the information. He's just a spokesperson. And we don't have the soundbite we'll look for tonight. Maybe we'll have for it tomorrow. But Kirby refutes that strategy. He says, no way are we going to send planes to Poland. And by the way, Poland, if you send those planes to Russia, could very easily be construed as an attack on Russian forces, directly attacking the Russian military. So no, we're not going to support that. So you have the Pentagon, the Secretary of State. I mean, you're supposed to know the Pentagon like you know your best friend. But again, this is the same Anthony Blinken and Laura Fisher on this show. Believe me, if there's a worse critic than me, or more of a critic of Blinken, it's Laura Fisher. Because, again, I quote Forrest Gump's mom a lot. What stupid is, what stupid does. And what crazy is, it's what crazy does. Here's the same Anthony Blinken who orchestrated with General Milley and Lloyd Austin, that same team's in place now, that orchestrated our surrender in Iraq. Now, not an organized withdrawal and given the state a chance to survive, a very quick withdrawal against really the advice of the vast majority of the generals, and just did it breakneck speed, pulled out. And everybody's saying you're going to leave a vacuum in there. If you move out this fast, someone's going to come in there, and they're probably going to be nefarious. They're probably not going to like the United States. You need to slow down, Blinken, Austin, Milley. Just slow down. Instead of going 100 miles an hour, go 50. You'll still get withdrawal, but you'll do it orderly. You'll be able to plug in some gaps as you leave and give support where you need it to give this government a chance in Iraq to succeed as a democracy. They didn't listen. And that void was filled, and it was filled by ISIS. And we know how many, thousands, tens of thousands, maybe more, innocent people murdered by ISIS. Remember Daniel Pearl, the Jewish journalist, being beheaded, on the internet? My goodness, imagine being his mom and dad. It was horrible to watch. How about the 50 Christians on their knees on the beach? ISIS beheading them all there. That's what happens. That's consequences, for lack of a better word. The consequential consequences of not thinking through this stuff, listening to people that are a lot smarter on the subject than you are. Quit trying to beat your chest like you're King freaking Kong, which is what Biden, Harris, and Blinken and all of them are doing. Like they're the baddest folks on the planet, and they're going to tell Putin how horrible he's Satan. He may be all of those things, but that's not how you're going to end this war. It's not how you're going to stop the killing. It's probably going to ramp up the killing. And that's just one example. You can just go on and on and on. And I talk about China. You saw, I said all along, China, Putin, they had that meeting before the Olympics. This invasion was absolutely talked about. Now, this is my common sense coming from me. I wasn't in the room, obviously. Excuse me. But China's on the outside, and you think China is saying, ooh, look how Russia's being portrayed in the Western media around the world. That Russia's being called baby killers, this and that, and all of that. Boy, we better not go after Taiwan. Think again. China could care less about those images. This is a country that killed babies if they weren't male. Infanticide. That's not some right-wing QAnon thing. Go look it up. It happened. They even admit it happened. Infanticide. They're trying to control the population. Oh, they're for women's rights. This is a really evil system that a lot of good Chinese people are having to live under. And they dress it up nice, make it look nice. You can dress evil up all you want, it's still evil. But Xi Jinping just came out yesterday and warned the European Union and the United States about the sanctions. They didn't stop there. They also echoed the Russia talking points that, hey, there is some Nazis with tremendous power in Ukraine. This is the Chinese. This is Xi Jinping calling us out. Exactly what the Russians are saying. So he sees the same footage we see. It's not hitting them the same way. They're different. The ideology, communism, dictatorial ideologies, that does not, bloodshed and the loss of innocent life does not move them like it does us. You just hope to negotiate your way out of this, reinforce what you have, and make sure you cut these things off from happening before they happen, and then you really go to work on China by bringing all of our manufacturing back home. That'll get their attention. They know we're serious about that. But you look at is it coincidence that after Xi Jinping made that statement about the sanctions, that France decided to publicly say we're not going to stop importing Russian oil? That Germany said flat out to the world, hey, we love you, Ukraine. Go get them. But we're not going to stop importing Russian oil. And by the way, forget about any kind of no-fly zone. That's not even on the table for discussion. And nor should it be. But just don't kid ourselves. I guess my point of this whole show is this. We have to live in the real world. We can't live in the world that we wish it would be. There's too much at stake. Sometimes you have to negotiate with very evil people. If you look back in World War II, at Yalta, you had Winston Churchill, the leader of a democracy, went through hell during the war. There. You saw Franklin Delano Roosevelt, our beloved president. There. And then you saw a third gentleman there, named Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin, by most measures, is the biggest mass murderer the planet has ever seen. Worse even than worse than Mao. Millions and millions. I mean, there's a debate over that. They kind of run neck and neck on who was the bigger mass murderer. But they knew, Roosevelt and Churchill, that you were not going to defeat Germany without the help of Russia. Wasn't going to happen. Every military analyst said it. Russia won World War II as much as the United States. Now, that's just fact. We don't want to admit that, but that's fact. They were mature enough, they meaning Churchill and Roosevelt. They were had enough of character in them, enough restraint, enough leadership that they preferred the next generations to what was going on right then. They knew they had at that time and place in history to deal with Stalin and Eisenhower, the MacArthur. They all knew they were going to have to face Russia later with the communist system. But in order to defeat Hitler, the threat of the moment, the threat of the time to humanity, they needed to work with the Russians and Joseph Stalin. Should they have not lost the war? Germany gets the atomic bomb instead of us. Instead of a bomb dropped on Hiroshima, it get dropped on New York, Los Angeles, Des Moines. I mean, the truth, as I said, Rick Warren said it best, the truth will set you free, but first it'll make you miserable. But we have to let the truth be our guiding light. Okay. I love you all. Thank you. And I look forward to talking about more pleasant subjects. And we're going to do that. We're going to sprinkle those in. But thank you for tuning in, Autry's Army. Let me salute you. God bless you. Love you. Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. We'll get a chance to do it tomorrow on Free for All Friday. Bye-bye now.
Happy trail.